Shabbat Shalom. Welcome back to Take Time for Torah. This week is Parshat Metzroa. Normally, Tazria last week and Metzroa are combined together as a double portion, but because of the leap year, they are separated. Last week, we began a discussion about leprosy, a description of how the priest would determine who has tzara'at, leprosy, and who does not, and how you would treat it on the individual. The portion ended with a description of what would happen if the disease strikes a piece of fabric. And this week, Parshat Metzroa turns its attention not just to the continuing description of leprosy, but also what happens when the Israelites enter into the land of Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, and the house is suddenly afflicted by an eruptive plague. Chapter 14, verse 34 says, "When you enter the land of Canaan, that I give you possession, and I inflict an eruptive plague upon a house in the land that you possess, the owner shall go to the priest, saying, Something like a plague has appeared upon my house. The priest will then go and will see and determine whether or not it could be cleaned. And if it can be cleaned, then all is well. And ultimately, if it cannot be cleaned or corrected, then the house has to be taken apart, brick by brick, in a sense, destroyed. It's not very much unlike what happens when our houses become infested with mold. Mold can be, in some cases, cleaned with bleach. But if bleach is not effective, and to really get rid of the mold, you actually have to remove that section that has been affected and replace it with something new. The rabbis draw a connection between this verse and an understanding that the house is a safe place, is a fortress against the rest of the world. And when the values of society erode, when selfishness becomes the norm, when inappropriate behavior becomes the norm, and those values in the larger society begin to invade the house, very much like an eruptive plague, then the house has to be corrected, and a safe place has to be recreated. In a sense, the home is the place in which we can call our safety net. It's a place where values are conveyed and values are created and taught. Rabbi Hillel Silverman, the Rabbi Emeritus of Temple Shalom in Greenwich, teaches the following. He says that Judaism teaches that the home is a great reservoir and fortress of our faith. The home is even more important than the synagogue. For Judaism could conceivably survive without the synagogue, if the Jewish home was to remain intact. Now, don't get me wrong, and I'm sure Rabbi Silverman would also agree, synagogue is a very integral part of the Jewish community. But it's the home where values are taught. In a sense, the home is a safe place and a fortress for teaching Jewish faith, Jewish ritual, and observing Jewish life. Shabbat dinners, saying brachot, giving tzedakah in the home, the pushkas that many of us have, is the place where values are taught and those values are transformed. In another week or so, we will celebrate the holiday of Passover. We will gather with families. Some of us will do full-blown seders, and some of us will just gather as families for dinner. I encourage you to bring your own self to that seder. I encourage you to bring yourself to those rituals. You know, if you don't only have a dinner, then each individual attending that dinner should bring with them their story of their exodus from slavery and their leaving Mitzrayim. Perhaps as a major discussion, you can talk about how there are efforts in this world to end human slavery that continues to this day. You see, as we build rituals in our home, rituals build faith, and faith builds values. And the values that we espouse and that we share with others serve as the bedrock of foundation of our community and our society. So as you continue to do your cleaning for Passover and preparations, may we find ways to bring more rituals into our home, and may our homes become a fortress of safety, a fortress of value, a fortress of faith for ourselves, for our children, and for our community. Shabbat Shalom. I wish you a wonderfully peaceful Shabbat, wonderful preparations for Passover, and I'll see you next week.